All right, well, we'll get started with our Proverbs tonight. And tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some Proverbs on relationships. And, there's actually a lot in the book of Proverbs about relationships, whether it's friends or neighbors or children or wives, whatever the case may be. And when you stop and think about it, relationships are pretty complicated things, right? I mean, you think about the dynamics and how all of it works and everything like that, and you think about, what we do, what we don't do, how it's interpreted with things, and I mean, it's a wonder that we have any relationships at all, right? But, we as people, we do want relationships, and to a certain degree, we need relationships. There are certain advantages that come from having relationships with different people. And so, there's going to be a lot of wisdom or skill in the Bible about how all of that works. And tonight, what I did, believe it or not, most of what we're looking at tonight is in chapter 27. So when you go and take a look at chapter 27 of Proverbs, you'll just see that there's just all these Proverbs about different relationships there. So I just thought, I'm just going to pretty much go through chapter 27 and look at the Proverbs that are there. And, of course, there's other places, other Proverbs, other places. But tonight we're just going to take a look at chapter 27. Okay? All right. Anybody have any questions on last week's lesson? No? Okay. Then we will start with chapter 27 and verse number 6. So chapter 27 and verse number 6 says, "Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses." Okay? So when we look at this, what kinds of things do we see with symmetry? What's going to be matched up with wounds? Notice that since this is a contrast, it's going to be the opposite of wounds, which is going to be
kisses.
Kisses. Okay? So what are we going to match up with friend?
Enemy.
Enemy. Okay. And notice that the friend can be trusted, but what does an enemy do?
Multiplies kisses.
Yeah, it just multiplies, I guess. Okay. So we kind of see how all of those match up, and we can see that there's a contrast there about, what a friend's going to do and what an enemy's going to do. Now, when you look at this and you think about it, you would think that an enemy is going to do what? Hurt you. And a friend is going to do what? Kiss you, right? Okay. So this is a little bit, a twist on what we might think to kind of illustrate a very important point. And that is that when we think about wounds from a friend can be trusted, what kind of wounds are we talking about here? Are we talking about like actual physical wounds? Probably not.
I thought maybe it's like critiques.
Critiques, or maybe they're telling you something that you really just don't want to hear. Things like that. And if you think about it, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, and so there's always going to be things that we don't do or should do or things like that. And then when somebody points it out, how many of us like it? We don't like it very much, right? Okay. So if those things are coming from a friend, then what should we think about that?
I guess mainly is that like they're saying, trust that they're telling you the truth for your own good, not to hurt you.
Because that's really not what a friend's going to do. If you've ever thought about going and talking to a friend about a particular matter of something that they're doing or not doing in their life, are you really there to hurt them? No, you're not. What are you there to do? Help them. And so that's why, these wounds from a friend can be trusted. Now, it doesn't feel that way at the time, does it? It doesn't feel, but sometimes I think that it would be wise for us to sit back and go, oh, wait a minute. Hey, if my friend who likes me, my friend who loves me, my friend who really wants something for the best of me, if they're telling me something that I don't like, then maybe the problem is not with them, maybe the problem is with me. And then because of that, then what I can do is I can just simply trust what they're saying, and maybe it's something that we really need to listen to, okay? All right. Now, the contrast of that is just simply an enemy. And what is an enemy going to do? It's going to multiply kisses. And so, in other words, does an enemy have any interest, looking out for your well-being? Nope, not at all. And so if they're going to be multiplying kisses, then do you think that they have an ulterior motive, an ulterior agenda there? Okay? And so those are the ones that you really got to watch out for. Those are the ones that you got to, that's really going to hurt you. Not your friend who's, giving you some constructive criticism or whatever the case may be, but the enemy who is going to be multiplying those kisses. And when they multiply those kisses, then you better watch out and just kind of remember, hey, this is my enemy. Why are they telling me this? Why are they telling me that I'm so good and wonderful and great? Why are they? Well, probably because they're wanting to steer you in a certain direction and manipulate you. Okay? And so, this right here, this is, just some pretty good advice as far as, just like life and relationships, When we have friends and they're telling us things that we don't like, maybe we just need to sit back and remember, hey, wait a minute, they're our friend. If an enemy is telling us things that we do like, maybe we need to sit back and remember, hey, wait a minute, they're our enemy. They don't like us. Okay?
I know in the King James Version, because when I first was reading that, I wasn't understanding. And it says, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful.
Okay.
So that I kind of understood a little bit better than.
Yeah. And so, you got to think, okay, why would an enemy be multiplying kisses? Compliment after compliment after compliment, good thing after good thing after good thing. Oh, have they changed their mind and they like me all of a sudden? Maybe not so much. All right. What about the couple of verses after that? Verse number 9. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. So when you look at different translations of this, you can kind of think that this last little piece here about pleasantness from a friend springs from their heartfelt advice, they have different translations of this. And so I kind of think that, based on what the perfume and the incense is bringing joy to the heart, I kind of see why the NIV translated it this way. And that is, you've got a friend who is giving heartfelt advice, right? Okay. And the heartfelt advice is really going to be producing the pleasantness of a friend. The pleasantness of a friend is springing from the heartfelt advice, okay? And when you think about it, this is going to be compared to how perfume and incense bring joy to the heart. And so, you have perfume and incense, both things that are going to be smelling really good. And because they smell really good, this is aromatherapy. And the aromatherapy is going to be bringing joy to the heart. It's pleasant, right? Okay. And so here is a friend. And what makes a good friend a good friend? When you can just have a connection with them, right? And when you can sit down with someone and, really have a good heart to heart, so to speak. You can say things and you don't have to worry about how they're going to take it, or taking things out of context, or, gossiping about you. You trust them. And so you can just simply open up your heart to them. And they, on the other hand, they can open up their heart to you. And you can have just a good heart-to-heart, genuine conversation. about things, and you can ask them things about what they think about this or that, and they can tell you something from the honesty and openness of their heart and everything. When you can have that kind of conversations with people, then what does that make the person that you're having a conversation with? Not just a friend, but a good friend. And so it's the pleasantness of our friend is springing from this heartfelt advice. If you can find somebody who is going to be open and honest with you, and you can be open and honest with them, and you don't have to worry about them being upset and getting mad about what you say, or taking your words and twisting them and running with a different direction, or whatever the case may be. You've got something that's a really good thing that's going to help you in life. Okay? All right. The reverse of that is also kind of true. And that is, when you find somebody who's going to be getting upset with what you say and, taking your words and twisting them and gossiping about them and everything like that, it's not going to be bringing joy to your heart. And so because of that, that's where you need to be guarded with your words. When it's going to be like that, that's the way it is. Okay? All right, the next verse, chapter 27 and verse number 10. It says, "Do not forsake your friend or a friend of your family. Do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes you." Now, stopping right there. Do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes. Is this trying to say that when problems happen, don't go to family members? Okay? Because saying, when disaster strikes, don't go to your relative's house. I think that sometimes people are going to look at that and say, yeah, when you're better off going to a friend than you are a relative. And I've heard some people say, I'm closer to like my church family than I am to my real family. And, I understand that, I get that. And sometimes, our the ones that we are close to are actually, better friends than our family members and so on and so forth. But I don't really think that that's necessarily what this is talking about here. Because the main root of what this is saying here is don't forsake your friend or the friend of your family. Okay? And so if we want to know the instruction of this, the instruction is going to be right here, isn't it? It's not necessarily here, but it's here. And when we read on down this last little phrase right here, it kind of explains all of that. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. Now, here we've got disaster striking our house, right? Okay. Now, put ourselves back in that day and time where if you've got to go somewhere that is far away, how are you going to get there? You're going to walk. Maybe you can ride a donkey or something, but even in the best of cases, it's going to take you a while to get there. If you are in trouble and you need to get word to somebody, how are you going to get word to them? Same way. Whether it's you walking or somebody else walking, there's no telegraph, there's no carrier pigeons. It's just, that's the way it is. And so, here you've got a relative that is far away. That's why you don't really need to go near to their house when disaster strikes you. It's like, oh man, I really need my brother's help, or I really need my cousin's help. And so they live 20 miles away. I better start now. Okay? By the time you get there and the problem may be over. So you really can't go to a relative far away unless, of course, that's all you've got. And if that's all you got, then you're in a pretty bad situation and straits, right? Okay. And so what do you need to do? Well, that's why it's better a neighbor nearby than a relative that's far away. And so if you're going to have neighbors that are going to respond to you better, that is, more quickly than a relative, then what do you need to do? Well, you don't need to forsake your friends, okay? Because if you forsake your friends, and then all of a sudden you come up and say, hey, I need some help, what are they going to say? Or what could they say? Well, you didn't help me, right? Okay. Or don't forsake the friend of your family. This is, separate families that are allied together, and you've forsaken them, and they come up, hey, I know that you're really good friends with my dad. I really need help. What are they going to say? Look, I haven't seen you for such a long time, right? And so there's the idea about just don't forsake your friend, or don't forsake the friend of your family. And I think that it's pretty good advice that we don't need to forsake our friends. I look back on my life, and I guess I'm real bad about this, is that oftentimes when I move from one place to another, I don't carry the friendships with me. And so it's kind of like, I can do a better job of don't forsaking my friends, don't forsake the friends of my family and everything. Try to keep in touch with them, keep tabs with them, and try to be there, because it could be that there's going to be a time that you might really have to rely on them. Okay. All right. Questions and comments about that? With just you three, this goes real fast, doesn't it? Okay. All right, this next one, chapter 27, verse 14. I threw this one in there because this is one of my favorite proverbs, and I will usually quote this proverb, not chapter and verse, but quote the proverb when I'm at church camp, and people look at me like, that ain't in the Bible. And so I was like, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to put this in here because I'm going to prove to people when they hear me say, I'm going to prove to them it is in the Bible. Okay, so chapter 27, verse 14. If anyone loudly blesses their neighbor early in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. I said earlier that there's several proverbs that have elements of humor in them. I think this is one of it. This is one of them, And, at church camp, it's like, you get somebody who gets up, 5 a.m. and, they go and they have their coffee and they wake up, and then everybody else who's getting up, later on, they're, happy and joyful and ready to go. And it's just kind of like, anyone who blesses their neighbor loudly in the morning is going to be taken as a curse. So, anyway, okay. But what can we take from this as far as relationships go? Okay, when somebody is blessing their neighbor, what is that intent? When you bless somebody, what is your intent? Your intent is good, right? Okay. But how are they interpreting that?
Not so good.
Not so good. They're interpreting it bad. Okay. So what is the difference here? How is it that you can say something intending it to be good and it be taken the exact opposite, where it's bad? Has to do with the circumstance, doesn't it? In other words, in our relationships, I think that there's some wisdom in just kind of being able to interpret the circumstances of what's going on. Because I bet that you're like me, you have done something and it's been taken out of context or been taken the wrong way or whatever the case may be, and somebody gets mad and you say, but I didn't mean it that way. I didn't, right? Okay. And so maybe what we need to do is just simply stop and think, okay, well, wait a minute, what is the situation? What is the circumstance? And, even though I'm not meaning it in this regard, the situation, the circumstance is going to alter what I say to do something and mean it for harm or for bad, right? And so, aside from the very obvious application to this proverb, which is true, when somebody is first waking up in the morning, going and jumping on the bed, yelling good morning is probably not going to be the best way to go about doing it. But maybe just taking that approach and applying it to different to different areas, we can maybe see, oh yeah, there's a little bit more to it than what first meets the eye. Okay? All right, going on down to verse 15 and 16.
Oh, that one's good.
Oh, how I wish, Quentin or Jake or somebody was here to back me up on this. Don't have any men. A quarrelsome wife. Now, why is Proverbs picking on the women? Why is it the quarrelsome wife? Because it's not only in this proverb, but it's actually in another proverb in chapter 19 too. Why is it the quarrelsome wife?
Because he's talking to his sons.
Exactly, he's talking to his sons. I was about to say, is that to say that us men, us husbands, are never quarrelsome?
Of course not.
Of course not. Men can be just as quarrelsome as women. Although, from the male perspective, it might be a little bit the other way, but that's neither here nor there, right? Okay, a quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of a leaky roof in a rainstorm. Okay? All right. You're right. Now, leaky roof, when you go and you look up different translations, you really don't even see that leaky roof. It's just quarrelsome wife is like the dripping in a rainstorm. And so, when you think about it, like the rain that we had last night, boy, that was a pretty good little shower last night, wasn't it? And this morning, yeah. And so, if you were out in the middle of that rainstorm, would you have a leaky drip? No. You wouldn't. It would just be pouring down on you, right? Okay. And so the idea is that you're finding shelter, and then you've got the drip, And so here you are in a rainstorm, and it's just dripping, 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 dripping. Okay? So what are you going to do about it while the rain is going on?
Put a bucket under it.
There's not a whole lot you can do to fix the problem, can you? It's just going to continue, and you can't do anything with it until after the rainstorm has passed. Okay? All right. So, looking at this, and that is, thinking about the symmetry here, I guess this is, I forgot what we called it, but emblematic, and that is, and it's comparative to. And that is, here's this leaky roof in a rainstorm, dripping, okay? Why is a quarrelsome wife like this? Just restraining her is like restraining the wind or grasping oil with a hand. And so if you're going to have a spouse that is going to be bent on being quarrelsome, that is, that they're going to want to fight, they're going to want to complain, they're going to want to argue, they're going to want to bicker, they're going to want to, that's the idea about what quarrelsome is. When you have somebody who's just kind of bent on that regard and being quarrelsome, you really can't do anything about it, can you? I mean, because that's just the way that they're going to be. And they're going to find fault, or they're going to find argument, they're going to find fault fighting at whatever is going on. And so restraining them, or in this case, restraining her, is like restraining the wind. Can you do it? Nope. Grasping oil with the hand. Can you go and grasp oil with the hand? Nope. You can't do it. And so are you going to be able to restrain a quarrelsome wife? Nope. Okay. It's just going to be dripping, 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 dripping until the rain's over. Okay. You know, there are some proverbs that I like to call fact of life proverbs, meaning that it just simply tells you like it is. And I think that this is kind of one of those fact of life proverbs because, you know, you're looking at this and saying, you know, I've got a quarrelsome wife or I've got a quarrelsome husband. What can I do about it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They don't give you how to fix it. They just tell you this is how it is.
It's just how it is. And so, you know, if you find yourself in that kind of situation, what do? You find a way to live through drip. I don't know, because, you know, when you look at these two verses, it doesn't tell you what to do, does it?
No.
It just tells you that you can't do anything about it. And that's just the way that it is. Boy, that's a ray of sunshine, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, because it's a rainstorm. You're not going to have a
True,
ray of
yeah.
sunshine in a rainstorm.
I think that's supposed to tell you when you're dating them, maybe. You know, they're like that when you're dating them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that is a way to apply this. But the thing of it is, Carol, you know, these people, they didn't date.
No, that's true.
It's just arranged marriages, number one. And number two, when people are dating, you know, you really don't know what your husband and wife is really going to be, you know, 50 years down the road when you're dating, you know. And so, and I'm not even saying that all that's bad. I mean, you know, something can be really good, but it's just that, you know, people change and you know, when you're dating, it's new and exciting, and you know, you just don't always let your true self out. Okay. All right. Other questions and comments about that one? Okay. Chapter 27 and verse number 17. Another really good proverb that I like. I preached this proverb at church camp one time, as iron sharpens iron. And I pulled out a right angle grinder and sharpened a machete, you know, right there in the middle of the sermon. I had sparks flying and, you know, noise of that grinder going, and it woke some people up. So, but as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Okay. When you think about iron sharpening iron, that is, that here you've got a blade, kind of a cross section of a blade there, right? You can see it. Okay. How are you going to sharpen that blade? Well, you're going to take another piece of iron or stone or whatever case may be. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that stone and rub it in one angle. What really happens is that there's, you know, these little burrs that are right there. And it's not that it completely removes them. It's that it smooths all these down. And so what ends up happening when you sharpen a blade, what you're really doing is you're just taking all the rough edges and you're just smoothing them down to where you can get a good point on it. And so it can cut through things, okay? And when you do that, then what's going to happen is that your whatever you're going to use to sharpen it, you know, it's going to have an effect on it too, right? Because this surface is being affected, this surface is being affected. Now, getting back to this, iron is going to sharpen iron. So one person sharpens another. And so in other words, another way of putting this is people rub off on each other. You know, have you ever noticed that if you're around somebody that they influence you? And at the same time, if you're around somebody, then you're going to influence them. You know, you kind of see it more with kids. You know, from an adult perspective, looking at kids, You know, you have one kid that's going and, hanging around another friend, and all of a sudden music that they never cared to listen to, they're listening to it. Things that they're, clothes that they're wearing that they'd never wear before, they're all of a sudden wearing. And, it's just, that's the way that it is. Here's another, one of those fact of life proverbs. It's just simply, this is the way that things are going to be. We are going to have an influence on other people. People are going to have an influence on us. We, in turn, are going to have an influence on other people. And so, because of that, even though it's not said here, what is wisdom in this situation?
You should be the influence, or you should try to be the influence instead of the worldly people influencing you.
Well, to do that, maybe you need to be aware that they are going to, right? And so if worldly people are going to be influencing you, even if you say they're not going to influence me, they probably are going to be a little bit, right? What you need to do is you need to be aware of it. And at the same time, you need to be thinking, hey, wait a minute. If they're influencing me too much, maybe I need to remove myself from the influence. When we are closer to the world than we are to our, godly associates and friends and everything, then chances are they're going to go and pull us in a different way. I see this, and that's the reason why I preached it at the church camp, is, teenagers, you got to watch what who you surround yourself with, because if you surround yourself with enough bad people, what they're going to do is they're going to pull you away. And I have seen it over and over and over and over and over. And that's why I was trying to tell the teenagers, hey, don't let this thing happen, okay? Wisdom would just simply say, this is going to happen. And so it's like you say, Carol, let me try to be a good influence to people, and let me, try to watch out for the bad influence. And if all of a sudden I start to find myself falling into bad influence, then maybe I need to start hanging around other people. Okay?
I don't know. I'm kind of probably changing the subject a little bit, but I don't know if you saw that from Winsville, Timberland, these teenagers who put they made their own little kind of like a bomb. I don't know exactly how, and they put it on a principal's front porch over the weekend, and it went off. Now nobody got hurt. Fortunately, yeah, there was two of them, I think, but two bombs or whatever. And first they had two 17-year-olds arrested. Now I know there's a third one. Now they say there's also an adult involved. So I wonder always when you're talking about this, was it one kid telling, and the other kids probably weren't at first, probably wanted to do it, but come on, it's just, we're going to just doing this fun thing, and that's probably like the same thing,
and really in even more serious situations, you talk about the radicalization of different people, especially it seems like, the media likes to talk about radicalization of people on the right, but it seems like the more radical people are the ones that are on the left. And it seems like the more violent people are the ones that are on the left too. And when I read about their stories and everything about people who go and do something like, assassinating Charlie Kirk or something like that, it's almost like they surround themselves with people of like thought, and then all of a sudden that becomes the sounding board, and you don't get out and see any outside perspectives that gives you an element of humanity, because all you're hearing constantly is these people are evil, these people are terrible, these people need to. And so, when somebody like Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, then all of a sudden you hear other people say, well, he had it coming. You know what? The murder of one human being, even if you disagree with them, are you really going to say that? And then they say, oh, well, he was this or she was that. And it's like, well, no, they really weren't. But even if they were, what makes you think that you could be judge, jury, and executioner? And so it's it's this proverb in that setting, in that situation, right? And it would be better for people to go, oh, wait a minute, what influences do I have? And maybe I need to take a step out to get a different perspective on things.
And I think a lot of it isn't just people, it's your media. I mean, your social media that you're reading, and you're only, and of course, the more, if I understand it right, with the algorithms in this, like if you read this one and they know that you're reading that, they'll keep sending you more of it into your feed. So that's all you're seeing is all this one-sided, and it's not even, like I said, so I think I know a lot of people who've also stepped back from Facebook
You're right.
and other social media because, it was taking, a lot of, I don't know, influencing them, but just it took away all their time also.
Right.
So
Trap.
Oh, it is. It's going down the rabbit hole, as we say. Yeah,
It is.
And so,
it really is.
So when you were saying this, because I wonder why when we were younger, we didn't probably even care about politics, but all we had was the news on TV, and you didn't watch the news as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so they're getting it from all these other things that they're seeing.
all these other things are very enticing too. I mean, they're
yes.
entertaining, they're funny, they're whatever the case is.
And they think they're their friends. These people
Yes.
that they don't even know them probably.
Yeah. That's the danger of social media, is that we want this relationship, and we're not going to have a relationship with a video clip, but somehow we think we do. So, okay, good thought, good comments. Okay, real quick, this isn't in chapter 27, but I want to throw this in there. Okay, this is a well-known proverb, chapter 18, verse number 24. I put in the Amplified Bible's translation of it. And you say, what is the Amplified Bible? The Amplified Bible is pretty much the New American Standard translation. The people that produce the New American Standard produce the Amplified. What they do is they go and they amplify it. And so, they put in different definitions and things like that. If you ever go and read it, if you find the things that are in parentheses, that's like, okay, this word can mean these things. If you find words that are in brackets like that, it's like we are adding these words to kind of bring out a certain meaning for it. Okay? All right. So it says, the man of too many friends, chosen indiscriminately, will be broken in pieces and come to ruin. But there is a true loving friend who is reliable and sticks closer than a brother. Okay? And so a man of many friends is going to be broken and come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Okay? So, looking at this, people, and this, Carol, this kind of goes back to, the social media, Facebook of, oh, I've got 1,642 friends. Okay, well, do you really? I do not, I don't really participate in Facebook. I do have a Facebook account. Maybe 4 times a year I will go and look at it. So if somebody sends me a friend request, I may not get to it for a while. If I see it and I actually know the person, or, there's a semblance of knowing them, I'll go ahead and say yes. But I've got a lot of friends on my Facebook account. I'll be honest with you, I don't know who these people are. I can go through and I go, oh, I remember meeting this person at such and such church. I'm not trying to say, bad or anything like that. But as far as actually knowing them and knowing what's going on, no, I don't, If I were on Facebook, I could see, a little bit about what they're portraying their life to be, which may be different than what their life really is. But, it seems like oftentimes people will try to think quantity is quality. And so if I have a mass of friends that are there, it's really going to do something for me. If I'm popular, if I'm well liked, if everybody knows who I am. But oftentimes when we're like that, there's nothing really good in it for us, right? We really don't get very much out of those kind of relationships, except for pain and hurt and problems. Okay? And so if we are just simply, and that's why I wanted to bring up the Amplified Bible's translation here of friends who are chosen indiscriminately. Friend. Well, wait a minute. We've got all kinds of different problems that may be headed our way that we don't even realize, right? Vis-a-vis the iron sharpening iron. But instead of having a multitude of acquaintances, isn't it better to just simply have a good friend who is reliable and who sticks closer than brother, right? I mean, there's the value of it. It's better to have one good friend than 100 whatever, okay? Now, as far as a friend who is and sticks closer than a brother, who is that ultimately, or who can that ultimately be talking about? Jesus. That's right. He is somebody who is going to be reliable, and he is going to stick to us closer than brother, because he's never going to leave us or forsake us. And so we always need to remember, hey, wait a minute, Jesus needs to be my most important relationship no matter what. Okay? All right, that's all I got. Do you have any thoughts or anything?
Even close friends sometimes, you think they're close, but you don't know what's going on.
Right.
You think that they would be open.
Right.
But then all of a sudden they do something and it's like, where'd that come from?
Yep.
But they don't want to talk about it either.
I know. That's one of those. That's one of those things of life, right? We can't. Why people do what they do is a big mystery. We're never going to understand that. If you can figure out why somebody does what they do, well, then you got lucky, because chances are at a certain given point you won't. And so, it could be that at one point in our life, we've got this good, trusted, reliable friend, and then all of a sudden, whoa, what happened? I don't have that friend anymore.
Well, we're not with people 24/7, basically.
Right.
So you don't know what experiences they're experiencing, what's happening, or what they're hearing or not hearing,
or how they're interpreting situations.
How they're understanding their communications is so vital, but so many people don't know how to communicate.
Yep.
So again, all we can do is keep loving and trusting and praying that we say and do the right things.
Right. I think that the very best thing that we can do for a friend is just to be a friend. And if we can be a friend, then that's the best thing that we can do.
And if they don't want to be your friend, well, I'm here if you change your mind.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just one of those hard truths of life. But it's like the world of sin that we live in. And I'm not saying, specific sins of people, but I'm just simply talking about the sin nature that is in all of us can deceive us and lead us astray and get us to think and do and say things that we know we shouldn't do, and and so if somebody, you're being a good friend to them, well, it doesn't mean that everything's going to work well with them. It could be that they've got all kinds of different ways and issues and things that they go in life and aren't dealing with things right, you know. And
or as the earlier, one of the first proverbs up there, you try to help them,
right,
and they're not understanding that you're trying to help them.
right,
They take it wrong.
right. You know, and they look at you not being a friend; they look at you being an enemy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, no, I care about you. That's not what I'm doing. But you know, they don't see it that way. You know, what do you do in that situation?
It's tough. Yeah. It's like one strike and you're out. It's like,
Yeah. There's some people that, you know, I going back into their past, maybe they have, you know, pain and hurt from people, and so as soon as they experience that from somebody, instead of having that forbearance and, you know, forgiveness and love and everything that what you really need to have to make a relationship work, and that's it. And I think that there's also some people that because of pain and things that they have in their life, they don't want to get close to somebody. They'll get close to a point and then that's it. And it may even be like a subconscious thing of just simply turning it off as a way of what they consider to be self-preservation. We are very convoluted, complicated beings, are we not? Yeah. Okay. Well, if nobody else has anything, then how about if we pray and be dismissed? Dear Lord in heaven, thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your word and the direction that it gives to us. Lord, we ask that you please be with us. Help us to seek after wisdom. Help us to take your word to our hearts. Lord, please lead us and guide us, and please forgive us of our sins. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.